Hi everyone, I'm the Rum.
And I'm the Vine.
We're an expat couple living here in Dublin, Ireland for the past 4 years. Today's video is a wee bit different.
Today we want to talk about Netflix's new show called Marriage or Mortgage. And as the title suggests, it's the relatable problem that lots of millennial couples have. It's like you've saved up a bunch of money, do you now go for the wedding or do you use it as a deposit for a house? And we wanted to talk about it from the sort of millennial people into finance point of view, because we've been reading some articles on some online newspapers.
Yeah, newspapers. Remember those things that, you used to get delivered to your house that now pop up on your feed? Yeah, so the thing is that we were interested in the show since we just celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary, and we were thinking, okay, let's see what people's opinions are. And wow, did these folks drag, and I mean utterly drag, with contempt, anybody who took the choice to decide wedding. Now, having already done our wedding and, well, don't have a house as yet, we figured, let us come to the defense of people who decided wedding. Because as millennials, I think there is a perfectly understandable set of reasons which we'll go through in this video. So if you yourself are thinking of, should I have a wedding or should I have a mortgage? Yeah, I think you'll find this video interesting. Of course, please do remember to subscribe, and if you like the video, of course, give it a like. Yeah, we'll be revealing what our personal thoughts and what we would do in the situation at the end of the video.
So our first reason why we're defending people who choose wedding is about savings actually. So on the show, the premise is that a couple already arrives to the show with about $25 or $30K saved that they can either use for the wedding or as a deposit for a house. If you didn't know, because I didn't, in the US apparently mortgage laws are very different from Europe, and that is enough deposit to get a mortgage for like up to around $400K in that area house.
Between a wedding and a house, one of these things generally is seen as an investment. And in the case of most of the articles, most of the folks couldn't understand at all why someone would choose to spend their money on the wedding versus a home. And I think it really comes down to the savings rate, because a lot of these people, they didn't seem worried that they were going to spend $25K. And the thing is that they also weren't going into debt about it. We all know that debt is pretty much your enemy. But the thing is that at the end of the day, the wedding choice isn't putting you into debt.
So, we do realize that most of the people on the show were probably pretty well off and had pretty significant incomes, considering they'd saved up that amount in the first place, and by choosing wedding, they knew that it meant they'd have to start over from zero to save up for the house, and it's something they want to do in the near future. But since they weren't worried about making that goal, we do think that based on their financial behavior, it seems like a pretty realistic goal within, a year or two for them to be able to save up that amount for the wedding. And I think what some of the articles also tried to get into is the big problem with the wedding industry, that a lot of people get pushed into taking out loans, which is definitely something we wouldn't recommend, because a lot of people might think, okay, we'll just get this loan to help out with the cash flow. But what they don't look at is the interest rate, because then you're paying a very high interest rate, which means you're not just paying back the amount that you borrowed, you're paying back the interest rate on top of it, and that can drag out for a long time, and that'll push back the time you can get a mortgage much further. And also by being able to demonstrate to a bank that you were able to be conservative in your spending, save up that amount for the wedding instead of borrowing, it does show that you know how to manage your finances to the bank, and it can reassure the person granting the loan that you'll be able to make your mortgage payments.
Of course, disclaimer for everything that we say, we're not financial experts, etc. We are people who've had a wedding before, so that's our greatest expertise here. But another thing we've done before is move. And the second point we think is that to choose somewhere to live for several years should definitely take more or longer to decide than in the span of a television show. Even just to move from one part of Dublin to the other, the amount of research we have gone to think about our lifestyle, transport, all this stuff, it would definitely not be a realistic thing for us to make such a big decision after one house visit. For example, if you're staying for the rest of life, there is the option with, if you are gonna have any children, where are they gonna go to school? Is the area that you like, is it safe? The thing is that, sure, we understand that it's a reality TV show, so probably don't want to say where you actually are in your location, but you have to scope out the neighborhood, think about transport links, actually be there and visit there and know and talk to people before you can even think about making such a decision.
And another point that I find funny that the investment people in the articles didn't really point out as such is that buying a house obviously is an investment, and one thing to think about is what is the area like and how will it develop in the future. Like if you buy a house for a certain amount now, will that value stay the same at least, or will it increase? Because if you move to an area that's more, let's put it nicely, getting less popular, because maybe a bigger town or another place where more jobs are opening up is getting more popular in the area, it could decrease the value of the house or of the area. And it means that you thought you did the smart choice by going for the investment option, but really it's a bad investment because the value of the investment went down.
We're not sharing any spoilers if you do go and watch the show, but there's one couple in particular that you could definitely see their change in behavior, that you knew they're probably going to go house. Because one of the things you realized is that folks, they weren't really that went for the wedding, they weren't really as enthused. They didn't have the questions, they didn't do much of the research. They were almost being like, here's a house. Let's see if you like it. While the couple that did choose the house, from the time they went in and saw something, they were like, no, this is not going to happen. This will not work. They were ready, if it didn't meet the requirements, to say no. And that was a good example for the couples who would have been, a lot more prepared for that big decision than some of the couples who were definitely more ready to have a wedding than they were to go and buy a house.
And that's a really good point as well, because for some of the couples it just felt a bit of the going through the houses, a bit of window shopping. You're just looking at what you might like. So I think it's still a very good experience for them, because it confronts you with the choices of, would I like something like this? Would this matter to me? Would I pay more in price for this, or does it actually not matter to me that much? So it's still a good practice run, and there's also no harm in deciding that actually you don't know enough about what kind of house you'd want to live in, or you haven't thought about it deeply enough, and that's why you want to postpone the decision. Again, we're not financial experts, but we do like consuming a lot of content about finances, so we've learned a thing or two. And thinking back to the couple that we were just talking about, how we could also tell just by when they were looking through the house how they were different, is that they specifically had thought about what appliances they would like in the home. And I also felt like some couples where we were like, yeah, they're gonna go for a wedding, you could see that they hadn't thought about the fact that if they have to furnish a place themselves, they have to think about what kind of appliances would they need. What kind of cooking would they maybe even be doing? Like, there's a lot of thought that has to go into it, and then you have to find the budget on top of the actual mortgage, because you could also tell a bit the difference of people just thinking about, okay, so this is the mortgage we can get, that's a budget for a house, not really thinking about there, apart from like obvious closing costs and taxes you have to pay actually on top of the housing price that you should calculate into your mortgage. They hadn't really thought about how much money they'd need to spend into the furnishing of the place.
Yeah, exactly. Because that same couple, you brought up a good point. They actually talked about, the maintenance fees as well for each home. I don't know if it's kind of like the council tax almost compared to the UK a bit. I'm not sure.
In a way, it's like you live in an apartment complex, I think, and then you pay a fee to just maintain the general area, so it is kind of like a council tax in a way. And that is like a continuous cost, so that's something you have to think about, because the bank will also look at it, because they look at how much income do you have, how much debt, to decide can you pay it, but that'll be an additional expense you have to add to your the basic fixed costs that you'll have each month. So although we're like team wedding, not as a team wedding, but in defense of people who chose wedding, we do have to point out that there is of course, a lot of problematic stuff with the wedding industry. It's an industry after all. It's built around people trying to make money, of trying to sell you a thing, of an idea of all the things you need to have at a wedding.
For your dreams.
For a dream wedding. So it has to be special, it has to be different from anybody, which I still find a bit surprising, because at the end of the day, what makes the wedding is you signing a piece of paper in front of people. That is technically everything you need for the wedding, for it to be legally counting. But of course, there is a lot of problematic stuff in the wedding industry, and also prices can be quite high, and maybe like you feel like marked up too high just because it is a wedding.
So the two actual hosts of this show are a wedding planner and a real estate agent. And how they sweeten the deal at the end is that they may pack on some incentives. Yes.
Because it's a competition for them. They want to win. They want someone to pick team house or team wedding.
We can also call them bribes, but you know. But basically, if you're having a wedding, you know, you might be able to get some of the discounts on some of the furniture or items. And what you're really paying for in this case is the wedding planner and their connections to places in the industry. Because the thing is that everyone had a budget on this show, and you got your dream wedding within this budget, which means you got some discounts and so on like that.
Like huge discounts, like wedding dresses 50% off, and throwing in the whale that would have been like $1,000 for free.
Yeah, you can't do this kind of stuff usually unless you're, you know, an influencer or you have a big YouTube channel or a platform where, you know, people be like, here, yes, here's your product. Showcase it for me to your millions of, you know, subscribers on your platform. So in this case, for these people to be tempted to be shown like, hey, you can have these discounts, yeah, it just adds that little bit of extra sugar to make that decision a bit easier to tip onto the wedding side. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. I'm gonna get rid of that voice because I think that sounds ridiculous. The moment is here, and it's wedding! Yeah, I know, a very strange decision from us, but we'll tell you exactly why.
So, what you have to remember with the show is that, like we explained at the end, before the couple makes a decision, they kind of have their choices reviewed, and they throw in some nice deals, some offers that are, like, literally, you probably couldn't get yourself. Maybe you can negotiate the house of a price as a person, or you can get a real estate agent to do that. But to find a wedding planner who can get you like 50% of a wedding dress and throw in the veil for free, and have like such good connections to the venue to give you stuff so much cheaper and probably easier to fit your dates, like, you're paying for the network of the wedding planner and their ability to pull something like that off. And that's just something that's very hard to get outside the show. So that is one of the reasons we would go for that. But we try to cheat the system a little bit. Because we did notice what the wedding planner was doing is, if you told her the budget is 25k for a wedding, she'd go and give you a budget plan for a wedding at exactly 25k. So every time you were like, okay, this is a nice thing, but we just need about half of that, or like the cheaper options for that, she'd go and throw in something else to come back at the 25k. And that's where we would have probably cheated a little bit.
Yeah, of course, realistically, might not have been able to cheat because the shows, everyone had guest lists of like 80 to 100 people, like big weddings. We don't know 80 to 100 people, so it would have definitely been a smaller wedding. But of course, if the smaller wedding and the discounts and stuff that we would have gotten, we would have used that money left over to then start and continue building the home ownership fund. And as the wine was saying, we would have had the experience with a real estate agent to go and look at houses. You've had a better idea of what exactly we wanted. So when we had the money to go again for deposit, we'd have more knowledge, more experience, and probably be able to make a better decision to know what we can do with that budget of money that we would have saved up.
So we'd choose wedding, but be like, we'll take your business card for the real estate stuff later and give you a more detailed list of what we actually want.
So I hope that all of you that were coming with pitchforks, wondering how on earth could you be so irresponsible, and pick wedding. Yeah, I hope you understand our answer. And it's just a TV show. There's things that are happening beyond the actual lens of the camera. But also, I think it's a good parameter thing for people to watch and really understand what they're getting into. So far, we've got this glitz and glamour thing that we don't see what's happening behind the scenes. I think this show shows a bit more of the real difficulty in making a decision like this and understanding, especially with the times where the house may be chosen over the wedding, exactly why people may do what they do.
And it's maybe interesting for you watching at home as well to walk yourself through the decision process and think about, would a fridge this size be a deal breaker in a house? I know we've had that conversation.
Indeed. Well, thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. What would your decision be?
Let us know.
And with that, wish beta.
Bye.